In this video, I want to continue with our Navy SEAL training, right? Our 5 steps. You remember there were 5 steps. Awareness, and arousal control, challenging false beliefs, mental rehearsal, doable tasks, and being willing to feel. In this video, I want to talk about challenging false beliefs. Remember, we're dealing with problems that occur in our limbic system, which is our sensory emotional responses to things around us, and it stems from previous experiences. If you remember if you go back and watch the bus driver video, you'll remember that I said that there were wounding experiences that have allowed liars to get on your bus, and they're influencing the way you drive. So, to challenge false beliefs, first, let me just say there's 4 categories of belief. There's beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about other people, beliefs about the world and how things work, and that can include just physics, how much pressure does it take to snap a pencil, or it might also mean culture. And there's beliefs about God. Now, we're not born with beliefs. Our limbic system begins to really wire together and develop at birth. So we're not, and it's an amazing system that God has given us because it makes us adaptable to having different abilities, because He's given us all different abilities and skills, and we grow up with different people. We have different people around us. We are in different areas of the world, different cultures, different time periods. But as far as God goes, He's always the same. But He's given us this adaptable brain. And unfortunately, we have some wounding experiences that hijack that system. If we're going to challenge these false beliefs, we challenge them with truth, but we need to know who the liars are on our bus. And the way we can do that is, I would suggest that you write down the top 10 list, or maybe not so top 10 list, but basically the top 10 worst or most wounding experiences of your life. And maybe you have more than 10 that come to mind. That's fine. Maybe you don't. Maybe you only come up with 5 or 6. That's fine too. There's no real wrong way to do this. But I would say write down on a sheet of paper just a couple of words to describe each of these events. And it might be a discrete event that only happened, in a brief moment. Or maybe it was something that happened over years. A parent who shamed you a lot or abused you, or maybe it was being bullied over years in school. So those are things that can be wounding experiences, but they happen repeatedly or over a long period of time. So write down that top 10 list. Write how old you were when that happened. Here's the thing about the beliefs, these underlying beliefs that live in our limbic system. This is an area that we're really not aware of. It becomes I've never met anybody that could sit down and tell me what their true core beliefs were, because once we start putting it into words, see, this is the logical system. The limbic system doesn't have any logic. It doesn't have to be reasonable. It just has to be experiential, right? It just has to line up with what my experiences have been. So a lot of times, like I grew up with a lot of rejection. And I don't think I would have ever sat down and told somebody, deep inside, I really believe I'm worthless. But that's what was going on. If you look at the experiences in my life, you can see this pattern of wounding experiences that told me to believe that I was worthless and that other people couldn't love me. And it told me that God couldn't love me and that the world was going to be unkind to me. And so those were things I learned through writing exercises like the one I'm telling you, looking at the experiences in your life. And then write down the emotions that it built, shame, fear, get a list of emotions. I probably should put one up on here somewhere. But the big ones would be shame, guilt, and fear. Those are the ones to look for. If you write down anger, I would encourage you to look what's behind anger. Anger is a secondary emotion, and it generally is driven by fear. Sometimes it's just hurt, but I would argue that it's really an outgrowth of fear that hurt is going to continue and you won't be able to stop it. So look beyond anger, but write down the emotion and write down what that experience told you to believe about yourself, other people, the world, and or God. And then as you look through these patterns, these beliefs, these experiences, and the beliefs that develop from them, again, and when you write down the beliefs, understand when you put it into your prefrontal cortex, you start thinking logically, and you're like, well, I don't think that about myself. That doesn't make any sense. You got to get out of your head a little bit, and so write down whatever it's. If you're not sure, just write down, well, what would that say to somebody? Right? If you had a parent who abandoned you when you were young, well, what would that tell you? Right? What would that say to somebody? It would say, I'm not worth sticking around for. And so write that down. And then write down how you protected yourself from being hurt that way again. That may take some additional work. I'll put some other things out there. And if you're working with a therapist, which I highly recommend, or maybe you could talk with somebody trusted in your life and try to figure out, what were the ways. So like for me, finding out I was worthless, I put on a mask, right? I figured out, my belief was I was worthless and that you would never love me. So I started realizing, well, my protective pattern was to put on a mask. I won't show you who I really am, because if you saw who I really was, you wouldn't want me. So I put on a mask, and I tried to be different things to different people. I figured out who I thought you wanted me to be, and I tried to be that, rather than being who God created me to be. And that was a way I protected myself from feeling the shame of rejection. What's the problem with that? I've alluded to this in previous videos, is who was there to love me for who I really was? Nobody, because they didn't get to see that. So we want to challenge, once we get an idea of those patterns, we have to challenge it with truth. So first, be in prayer. Get in relationship with Jesus Christ. You're not going to solve this without that. You got to find out, what does God say about me? What is God telling me? We want to replace the lies with the truth. We have to take the lies and put them in the light. And we'll talk a little more about that. But that's where confession comes in. Confessing things to God, but also to a trusted, spiritually mature person in your life. Your pastor, a mentor, maybe a friend, somebody, a therapist, somebody you can trust. Maybe somebody in a sponsor in a group or something like that. But you want to put that out there. And then when you figure out what the truth is, start figuring out, what can you do? How can you put that into an action? So for me, it might be telling somebody who I really am, showing them what really hurts me, being vulnerable, right? We want to find out the things that make us vulnerable, and carefully. We don't want to be willy-nilly about this, but taking risk. We're going to have to get out of our comfort zone and challenge these false beliefs. So if I show you who I really am, will you still love me? More importantly, if I confess to God who I really am, is He still going to love me? That's what's been healing, right? I've learned to take the mask off, and I think everybody has that one, but there's others that we can find, and we can challenge those false beliefs by putting the truth into action. God bless you. We'll see you in the next video.